Hello Grymm Nation, and welcome to the darker side of my channels, where your nightmares are fed in gratuitous amounts. Here today we have a special gift off of Reddit. Very special. It's a new story, just came out. It's very popular. I read it and I absolutely fell in love with the storyline. It's crazy. So, without further ado, onward to the tale. From the moment he was able to lift a paintbrush, my father was an artist. Reds and blues stained his fingertips. Yellow streaked across his cheek, and his shirt tarnished by green pastels. It was no secret that the man had a talent unparalleled by Monty, Monet, or Da Vinci. There was a certain agony in him that he could only release through the swipe of paint on a canvas. He was tormented. He was crazy. He was beautiful. My father was a collage of feelings and colors that my mother could never tame but would chase after nonetheless. He liked canvases. She liked projects. From the moment my mother laid eyes upon that crazy, twisted man, she knew she wanted to make him something more beautiful than any of his paintings could ever be. It's hard to chase after the wind, though. You cannot capture something that is always just beyond your grasp. You cannot stop a man who is only held back by his own inner demons. My father was a painter. Painters are never normal. He was consistently battling between reality and something just beyond what we could see on this plane. His brown eyes saw something my mother would never know, and I could never touch. Perhaps the paintings he made were reflections of the things he saw when his mind was clouded over. I will never know. I am not my father. It was only from when I was born that he started collecting himself once more. He could be normal when it was necessary. The streaks of paint faded from his clothes fabrics and were replaced with collared shirts and belts that held up slacks picked up by my mother. The fire in his eyes was gone and replaced with a new desire. The ache to be a good father. The ache to love. The ache to paint my emotions and sculpt a little girl that he could be proud of one day. I've been told I was the project that he worked hardest on. From the photographs on the mantle, you never would have guessed the man with the blinding smile was anything more than a regular father. He hid behind a pair of thin-rimmed glasses, and no one saw the world with magical eyes. The fire within him didn't fade, though. I saw it when he held me high above his head, tossing me around on my bed and making me laugh. I felt as though I could reach upwards and wrap my fingers around the corner of a star, and taking one back down to earth and give it to him in return for all that he'd given me. It would have glowed as brightly as the embers in his eyes did. The flames in his heart had never been extinguished. It was only waiting. But then it was daytime. After the sun slid behind the cliffs and the moon shone brightly in the sky, like a light bulb, God had flipped the switch on. He began painting again. My father hadn't dropped the practice after all. An artist cannot contain so much passion inside of them for so long without simply exploding. He had to release the fire somehow, so he was back to creating masterpieces. He painted with words. He painted with fists. He painted with the canvas he knew was his. I would press my head beneath my pillow and cover my ears with my hands. I told myself it would be over soon. An artist just needs to be. My mother never spoke with me about those nights. There was always a fear hidden behind her irises when I asked why he stained her skin with so much red paint, and why the purple was so vivid, and she tried to hide his brushstrokes with cheap makeup she couldn't apply as cleanly as he could have. She said he was far too broken to fix. She claimed that you cannot restore joy to something that can only listen to the dark voices in their head. My questions went unanswered. My mother always stopped talking after he entered the kitchen anyways. Sometimes he'd help me touch the scars again and soar through the night like an astronaut, but he always forgot to give me a parachute for my descent. I thought my father was a magical for being able to paint my arms without even touching my skin. It was a special trick he only did for me. My mother was a finger painting after all. She didn't get to fly like I did. Occasionally, I was a finger painting as well. The brushstrokes on my skin went far below my waist though. No matter how hard I scrubbed at my thighs, it didn't seem like the stains would ever get out of my skin. There was a price to pay for beauty after all. I was glad I could contribute to my father's genius. The teachers at school eyed my father's works of genius oddly. They weren't art lovers like the people in my family. They would drag me from class, make the colors on my skin ache, and ask about my home life. My father said that they wanted to take me away from him every time, and I recalled the day's events in the car. He told me not to tell them anything. So whenever I got those questions from the critics who didn't understand what art was, I responded, "My father is a painter." My parents took me out of school. They didn't see my potential. They didn't get my family. They weren't gifted like us. It was on a Tuesday that I woke up to discover that my father wanted me to help him. He had a new canvas and new paints for me that me and my mother herself had gotten for me. In his hands were brushes, dipped in paint and ready for me to take in my small hands and color the world with. It took very little coaxing to get me out of bed. He was my hero. He was a painter. I only wanted to please him, like he dreamed I would one day. I didn't really need the brushes after a while. It was easy to make swirls like the starry night with my fingers. Besides, they had already stained my hands enough. As a little girl, I hadn't been as coordinated as I wanted to. I didn't share the same grace that my father did. His hands could mold the earth if he wanted them to, so I mimicked the movements I'd seen him do on canvases. I worked at the piece pretty hard, watching the vibrant streaks run out behind my fingertips and wet the edges, dripping down delicately. I didn't have my father's talent, but the image I created was still beautiful. It was a new type of art that hadn't been invented yet. I just knew it. My father said he was going to go wash his hands. He claimed he would be back in a few minutes. It was ages before the police found me there, a little girl with wide eyes and red hands asking where her father had gone. My hair was still in messy braids and my nose had just had a dab of scarlet on the tip. Purple and black bruises curled up on my back and arms like sleeves. The men just looked there and stared as I slowly lowered my mom's entrails to the ground and stepped towards them. I kept asking them what happened. They wouldn't say. They just asked me to step away from the body and come with me. It was okay. He had left behind 2 sculptures, that twisted, beautiful man. One called Murder. The other one was called Suicide. And I'd helped him with the first. But he created the latter behind my back. It was like a little surprise he had waiting for me. I didn't get to see him again though. I was taken to a place full of fatherless children. Something I was not. And left in a world without art. My father's last gift for me, with a rope around his neck and a painting with my mother's blood I had done by his side. My father was a madman. My father was a murderer. My father was an artist. And my mother? She was his greatest masterpiece.